The objective was to check a task off. And I always say outcomes over activity, because I think this is one of the biggest mistakes the businesses do is they're like, success is we finish a project. No, success is more than that.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Ken Gavranovic is a seasoned technology executive, global keynote speaker, and member of Thinkers 50 and the Forbes Council. With a career spanning over 2 decades, Ken has a proven track record of helping brick-and-mortar businesses leverage AI and advanced technologies to achieve immediate, impactful results. His expertise extends to transformative roles with iconic brands like Disney World and 7-Eleven, where he implemented cutting-edge technology solutions to enhance customer engagement and operational efficiency, and he's here today to talk about the benefits of AI. Ken, welcome to the show.
Jake, thank you so much for having me on the show. Super excited to have a cool conversation, my friend.
Oh man, yes. The pre-chat has been excellent. People, you got to know. And now it's business time. We were talking about, before we hit the big red button, digital transformations of the past in marketing. Boy, we've been through them. So how is AI different than those previous transformations, and how is it similar?
Let me jump into, I'm going to answer the question. I want to go back a little bit on transformations. And one of the things I always think about, like business, oftentimes, there's some new, usually it's technology that comes, and there's some meeting inside a business that's like, here's the shiny object and what's our strategy. And oftentimes people think that the technology is the thing that we need to solve. Like that's the magic silver bullet, but it's always people, process, and technology. And I've seen it repeatedly. If you don't follow that, it doesn't work. And if I could, I'll just share a story back about cloud migration. So if you think about, let's go back to 8-9 years ago. It was, we're going to go in the cloud and it's going to be magic. And I was working with a Fortune 50 healthcare company. They had attempted to migrate to the cloud 3 times and failed and blown $50 million. And, when I got in there, it was the 3rd time. And I was like, okay, so walk me through how we got to this 3rd time. And they were like, well, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, so what's success? And they said, success is we moved to Azure. I said, okay, and what was the success the last time? The success was we moved to Amazon. And what was the success before that? The success was we moved to GCP. I said, okay, and that's what everybody was focused on doing. Success, we're going to do that. I said, great. And I said, so who was driving the initiative? And they said, okay, well, it's our ops teams. I said, okay. So when you move to the cloud successfully, is that really the check mark? They go, no, it's really going to be that our teams go faster, they build software, it's more resilient, it's this, all these, more specific objectives. And I said, great. So why isn't that your goal? And they go, oh, good point. And I said, okay. And who's going to be most disrupted? Like I said, it's going to be automated and we don't have to involve ops. And I said, okay, so who's going to be most disrupted by this transformation? Well, the ops team. I said, and who's running this transformation? Well, the ops team. I said, you see the little challenge you have here is the objective was to check a task off. And I always say outcomes over activity, because I think this is one of the biggest mistakes the businesses do is they're like, success is we finish a project. No, success is more than that. And I'll give you one more thing and then I'm going to answer your question if that's cool.
That's all good. Keep going.
When I was at New Relic, I'm a big, I would say objectives, objectives over activity,
yes.
Right? And when I was at New Relic, I ran the product and engineering team, and we monitored the internet. So you think about if you go to Disneyland, why is it that the Disneyland app works really well? Because behind the scenes, there's software called monitoring software that basically sits inside websites and mobile applications and sends data to companies like New Relic. And then we can then tell people, developers, that it's broken. So if you think about it, go back to 10 years ago, it used to be you go to a website, it's broken. You'd go to some mobile app, it's broken. Why is it that they all work much better? Because everybody's bought this kind of software where now it alerts the developers when the first person has an issue versus, you're calling customer service. And when I was doing that, one of the things we had to do competitively is we needed to start supporting, and this isn't really, this is technical, but it's not really that, this part is important, but we need to start supporting like Kubernetes and these other things. And so the team came to me and they said, hey, we're going to build this new open API. And I said, great. I said, so what's success? They said, well, success is we build it. I said, okay, well, I'm not good with that one. And I said, so if you build it, how, like, why am I going to invest $3 million for you to build it? Well, you're going to invest $3 million because we're going to make 10, $20 million in revenue. I said, oh, okay. So that sounds like a good reason. So how are we going to measure that? And so they came back and they thought, and they finally said, well, we're going to ingest so much volume of activity from customers. And I said, oh, okay. So I like that. So that's going to translate to this much revenue. And then they looked at me and they said, okay. So I said, so you're going to sign up for that as success, not delivering the software. And they looked at me and they go, wait, but if we have to deliver that, then we've got to build this one integration because we know that 50% of this traffic is going to come from this one thing. And the point being, so they built it, they built the integration, but the point being is when you have an objective, a business objective as success versus an activity, I built this API, it makes people do a lot more changes, if that makes sense. So I just want to do that as a pretext for transformation and then, answer your question.
No, so you can answer the question after I get it, but what I wrote down is like adoption of technology isn't even the biggest problem. And it ends up being that there's adoption rates are just poor and stuff. And you said it's not knowing what you want on the other side of adoption. And I wrote,
Right.
if you want to adopt a child, do you just want to adopt a kid or do you want to raise a kid? So like we got the kid. What are we going to do with it? Oh, well, it's like that didn't happen in Annie's case. Daddy Warbucks didn't even want Annie, and he found something. He found his heart. I don't know if that's a great metaphor, but I'm going to stick with it. Anyway, now you said that about the transformations of the past, these barriers that you just said, AI is coming at us. How is it similar? How is it different?
Let's do what's different first. So first of all, I think AI learns and evolves. If you think about it, it's constantly getting smarter. You're feeding it potentially data. Maybe you're training a model. So, I think that's one of the first things. It's something that once you get in, it should become more powerful over time.
Mhm.
Like the engine that we're using, it's just getting smarter and better and more accurate over time. So I think that's one of the big difference. The other part, I think, in areas where a human had to follow a set of rules and say, if A, B, C, D, E, F, then it's do D, that's being automated. So decision making, but again, I would say with AI, because a lot of people have fear.
Mm.
And to me, I think it's going to be one of the greatest enablers of humanity because what it is it's taking away the low value decisions or work that we had to do. It's taking that out. I'm sure you probably use AI. I use AI. It saves me a ton of time. I probably get a 30% efficiency, and I've got tons of data. Like if you think about developers, if they fully use AI, you
Crazy.
literally for every 3 developers, you get an extra developer in productivity. So it's amazing. But I would say that decision making is shifting for repetitive processes to AI. That's going to be a big transformation. That's different. And I think mass adoption is faster.
Mm.
Businesses took years to do cloud or mobile first, or we're a digital business. Once you put AI in some of these processes, it just becomes easier and easier. And people are seeing in some cases, like I even have an AI company that you can actually with prompts almost build what would have taken tens of thousands of lines of code. You can now
Mhm.
just put it in English. So I think that the mass adoption, you're going to see that. How it's the same, and I think this is something you and I just hit on a second ago,
Mhm.
Jake, is people resist change, right? Humans don't like change. Once we're comfortable, and to me, like I spent a bunch of time like studying central nervous systems, and it's a long story, but I'll give you the short version of it. I came from a very dysfunctional childhood, and so what that meant is there was always chaos.
Mm.
And so what that meant is I had to learn how to deal with chaos at a young age, which actually was my superpower for having business success. I took my first company public from you and I putting a desk together when I was like 29. But it also can hurt you. So humans are hardwired to resist change because change means risk, right? Do I lose my job? What does this mean to me? And so they have to do that. So they need to understand why you're doing it. It's
Mm.
really, really important. Matter of fact, go ahead. Yeah.
No. Matter of fact, finish that thing and then I have a question.
I was gonna say people do resist change. And then the other part is it's kind of what I was hitting on before. It's a strategy. So like there's people that have the development team doing AI and they're okay, we've done no AI can impact and help every part of your business from contracts, like speeding up less legal work. I was working with the PE company, small PE company, where they save $400,000 in legal fees, just having the teams run the contracts through AI and doing the vast majority of kind of the work in AI. So I think that you're gonna see like chief administrative AI officers
Mm.
because this is a business transformation. This is not just a technology. I think digital cloud, the main impacts were connecting the business and all of those things. This is really rethinking any part of your business where it's repetitive steps. How can we automate it? How can we embrace AI, whether it be now or later?
Mm. So here's one of the thoughts. The ability for someone to make sense of an output, check math. One of the things that I was seeing, I was working with ChatGPT, and I had these big numbers, because I was trying to figure out, total ad impressions available online, and then I said, "Can you take this number, this big number, and tell me what other numbers like this exist in the physical world, or in science, or astronomy, or physics?" And it said, "Well, here you go," and it made up this thing about how if every impression was an atom, you could create a new universe every week. And I said, "Hold on, how many atoms are in the observable universe?" And then a quintillion, cotillion, who even knows? So I was like, so that math wasn't right. And then I said, run it again. And then it said, okay, you could actually create 600 humans a week out of all the atoms if impressions were atoms. And turns out I said, well, how many atoms are in a human body? And they were like, well, it's this number. And it wasn't even close to the number. And I was like, man, I'm way over my skis here. I should, I'm talking about things and this is high flying math. But I saw a lot of problems in hallucinations. And it made me think, if you're going to be the AI coordinator, you saved a bunch of money not having lawyers review the documents. Now you're going to have to get them back in to make sure they look at it. You don't know a lot of technical stuff. You're going to have developer skills to understand if there's a problem with the SQL code that you made in Cursor. Now you actually have to get those people back. Humans in the loop being able to make sense and track hallucinations. How is that going to add to the chaos that you seemingly have a way to cut through? Is AI going to make it more chaotic? And how are humans in the loop going to check the work?
Well, you said a lot of really great and interesting things. So let me try to hit on it first of all. So first of all, I would say AI is not great at original thinking, period. And that's a lot of people don't get that. It's a very simple statement, but original thought, it sucks at. It fails. And it fails at it very confidently. As you know, it answers your question that's
without
totally,
a doubt.
like this is what it is.
Boldly.
So right, I've got this. But I think that's one of the key points, because you think about what AI has done is it's just taken all the things that humans have created, put it in effectively massive data sets with massive computing, and then it's trying to do a version of mimicking a brain where it's going through and making a bunch of kind of A/B selections and most likely choices. And hallucinations is really its quote creativity. So like if you think about ChatGPT, behind the scenes, there's open AI has a thing called temperature, where it's really you can turn up or turn down that hallucination factor. So you can adjust that. So like I have an AI product where we have somebody using it for they say it's not legal advice, but they go and basically put these legal books in there and people can ask legal questions, and it's becoming very accurate. And we turned down the temperature until we got to that sweet spot for what we were doing. You can do that a lot of times yourself with prompts. Like if you go back to when you're doing it, I literally say, don't make up anything, and make sure to triple check. And then what essentially it's doing behind the scenes is it's checking, did I have an actual fact or was that? And so you can play with prompts to get a lot of that accuracy there.
And one of the things that I said, I was like, please cite your sources where you're coming up with this and explain the way you got to this number. And it was like, oh, okay. And so it was really
like, whoopsie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, but it was informative in the way in which you can and you have to be involved in the way you're coming up with your solutions or using the technology, but you have to get in there and play with it. And then AI is cool because you said something dope, like hallucinations might be creativity. And I was like, can you really tell me that a human who's being creative is not coming to it through non-hallucinatory means? You're like, well, it's a little bit. And so that's why I like this thing, because you have your hands in the medium,
Mhm.
you're working that clay. But you gave some really good advice on how people can sort of bring their frustrations and expectations in line. And do you think like part of the frustration that people are feeling is they just not knowing how to prompt better or stronger? I mean, temperature, who knew that you could do this? I mean, is a lot of the fear actually frustration because they don't have the right expectations for AI?
That's what I was going to say. It's absolutely about misaligned expectations. You see, many business see, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is they see it as a magic bullet. So there's
Right.
some companies that they're like, this is great, and there's some companies that, I don't believe in this, but they're like, great, we're going to replace this whole group set. We're going to spend all this money, and they're already off on that. And in many cases, they're going to find out it was a total waste of money. So I think that, because it's that magic solution, it isn't a magic bullet. It is something that it's a tool, but it's not a turnkey fix, right? It needs refinement. We talked about prompts, or if you're doing it with APIs, you need integration. You need to double check some of the results to make sure that it's consistent. So it is a process. And when I think about it, it's almost like if you think about it as a version of a human, but all it can do is it only knows whatever it was like told. It has this tremendous database, and it has those new things, and it's really good at pattern matching and finding patterns that humans often aren't. And so like you got to play to its strength. So I think the key to reducing frustration is really to set realistic. It isn't here to replace human intelligence. And I think that's again, whether it be people trying to use it to replace human intelligence, it's not here. It doesn't do that. It's not good at original thinking, but it can accelerate decision making, automation, and for customer interactions in particular, customer service. I think that's one area that, that's a tough space. I think there's going to be so much automation. So I think if you're in a customer service job, you might want to look in other areas, because that's really, if you think about what most of customer service is, get input, follow said steps, give information. That's really AI is pretty good at that.
Here's a question that I was just thinking about. Kiosks, checkout kiosks, self checkout kiosks. That's another innovation that came to retail, and everyone's like, "Oh man, we don't have to hire nobody." But it, most recent news reports, people were getting rid of those because it actually was causing problems that they didn't foresee. Do you have any insight on that? Like when we're automating certain parts of the
Sure.
process, but we took the humanity out of it, or it's like, is everybody just responding to this, and then we might see a return of customer service with human faces?
Well, again, I think to me, AI should allow humans to be humans and focus on high quality human interactions. So let's just talk about two different types of kiosks. So I think the ones where they've replaced them is where they were at checkout kiosks.
Right.
And in many cases, it's because people were stealing, like literally, like, great,
Right.
this relies on me. So I think that that's it. If you think about, you see a lot of fast food kiosks, like if you go to Europe, for example, like, go to almost any McDonald's, almost very little does anybody behind the counter take your order. It's
Hmm.
almost always you're ordering from the kiosk. And I don't know about you, but like to me, if I'm ordering a burger and I could do that simple, like I don't know if I got that much human value from someone, telling me I want a double cheeseburger or Big
Right.
Mac with fries or whatever's your thing. But I do think like going back to AI, especially I've used like ChatGPT's speaking functionality, the streaming speaking functionality. Have you tried that?
No, because I'm scared.
All right. Well, if you do, it's interesting. If you try, like, if you have ChatGPT, you can click on it, but it can actually have human, like, because it's streaming. So, like, literally, you can just ask it a question, you can interrupt it and ask another question behind the scenes that's doing the prompts, but it feels very fluid. So,
Hmm.
going back to even the kiosks in the future, and we've done some stuff with some AI companies I'm involved with, but I can imagine where we just walk up and we say, yeah, I'll have a Big Mac with this, that, and the other, and it will know, here's the options. Did you want ketchup and mustard on it? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Okay, great. It's going to be $5.62.
Hmm.
And then that part, I question you, is that really valuable to interact with a human? Maybe the other parts, where I'm getting the food, or, like they have more time and they can
Well,
be patient. Hey, did you get everything?
the other day I was at a McDonald's where they were mainly kiosk, and I was missing a thing. I needed one thing. And everybody was busy working the drive-through and stuff. No one was standing looking out. Everybody was like working and working and working, and I just needed one thing. And so I had to stand there for a while they handled everybody who wasn't in the spot. So I think it's going to be a little push and pull, but
I agree.
we're gonna find that sweet spot, and humans are gonna tell us. The marketplace is gonna react. So that's where I kind of enjoy this. AI is sort of being put on us, but the way we reflect it back is going to show the true use case. So I think we're the key. If you want AI to work, look at yourself. Put the I in AI. Now, you've worked with big old businesses and small businesses. What are the benefits and barriers in each of them when it comes to adopting technology like AI? I mean, you talked about that Fortune 50 healthcare thing. Like 3 years, you couldn't get into the cloud? What, like a trampoline? What, like a catapult? Big stuff is hard. Small stuff is easy. I mean, that's the thought. Tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah, well, let's talk about benefits, and then we'll talk about like adoption difficulty. So I think on benefits for like a large company, they've got a vast data set. The bigger the data set, the more powerful the AI application could be. Of course, they've got bigger budgets, so that means they can invest. They're not kind of trying to grab AI out of the box. They can customize it for their needs. They can listen to what they're doing, make sure it's accurate. Once they've got that data set, if it's a data set about the business, they can actually use that in multiple departments. So you think about like that example where I said, let's say you stored your legal contracts, your invoice, like there's all kinds of things that you can then enable applications very, very quickly throughout your company to answer for, customers or your employees. Like, and I'll just go for examples. One of our customers in an AI company that I have, the customer service, the team wasn't replaced, but they actually used the AI system to answer the questions, and then they take their own knowledge over because they didn't know all of the rules, and like they might miss something. So it captures the things they might have missed, but they're still interacting with the customer. I think that's a nice use case. But going back to big companies, barriers, slow decision making, like as always, due to bureaucracy, resistance from employees and middle management, worried about change. And then, I think long approval cycles and legacy systems that sometimes can be difficult. It might be hard to get that data out of your old system and sync it and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah. So this is about measuring the benefits of AI, and our conversation about the way we're prompting and temperatures and stuff. If you just had like a marketer on the street who was like, I'm kind of in AI, I'm kind of not. Could you give them some like just a solid piece of advice that a person right now could stop this podcast and go and see improved performance or a measurable benefit coming from better use of the AI? Could you just like, I'm pretty sure you have a pocket full of these like little gems. Oh, you didn't know. Can you give us some of that? Because I think people need to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I said, first of all, I just look at the work that's being done that's low value. If you made a list of everything that you're doing or this particular department, and then just kind of put a bucket, high value, low value, I would bet that almost all the time, the low value work, the word that literally you as a human being say, that's not a great investment of my time, that's the stuff that AI can automate 90% of the time.
So here, what's low value? What if you come to realize your whole job's low value? Value compared to what? Effort, value. Talk more about that.
I'll give you a couple of easy examples. So let's take developers. Okay. Developers, I start off as a developer, but I've always been a business sales guy, blah, blah, things. But, developers like to create because it's really is a creative process,
True.
right?
Yeah.
But they also sometimes want to reinvent what's already been invented, right? So when you think about developers, a lot of time they've got this unique problem. I'm trying to figure out this problem. And is it really valuable for them? And sometimes low value might be to the company, right? Is it really valuable for them to go spend 4 hours researching a novel solution when they can ping AI and have a totally workable solution in 30 seconds.
Mm.
And so, and this goes back to people change. Like I've worked with some private equity companies where they want to have AI in development because they get that. But it's almost like, again, you have to train the people like this. This is not here to replace you. This is here to make you go faster, to augment you. I'll give you an example of contracts. So a lot of times company has a base contract and then they make changes for a particular person. Maybe somebody else has certain things. So putting AI, here's our base contract, here's their changes. Um, Outline for me quickly the key differentiated things, the risks to the business. Instead of like going line by line, it's really good at saying this clause that they're asking for puts this risk. This clause puts this risk. And so immediately, instead of like studying, okay, what does they really mean by that? It's pretty darn good at doing that. So is that really good that you read that? Or like, here's the base correct, here's that. Show me all the things I need to pay attention to.
Oh, man. And you just kind of eloquently demonstrated your ability to think of a better, and this is the problem with market research that has always been the problem. It's the way you're asking questions, and it's the questions you ask that matter more than getting answers. So you have to really spend time being so precious with the way you're explaining what you want to see, that if you actually really do this and work with AI, you come to a greater appreciation for the knowledge that you manage, the behaviors that you steward, the people that you're in charge of. You are going to get a completely empowered, enhanced sense of what's going on if you actually use AI. But if you just kind of put it in there and say, take me from A to B, show me the shortest way. Nah, you have to really be precious. I mean, do you think that one of the skills people should do in AI is not technical? It's actually thinking about the grammar, the lexicon, the taxonomy of their problems. Yeah?
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. And the other part, it's with AI, is connecting your customers. And if I could give you one other example, so I have a startup, an AI startup called Product Genius Guru, and one of the things we've done is we basically made it so that you could scan a QR code and then it instantiates, we call it digital employee. And that digital employee, you can have a memory so it understands your business, and you could do surveys. But where it's very interesting, so we're talking to some like uh, you know large department stores. So imagine you're in the large department store, and how many times is there something we're looking for?
Mm,
So if you could just scan a QR code, because a lot of times, like if you're Home Depot, they have something like that. They can scan it until it's on aisle 10.
right.
So scan a QR code and you can type in, like, hey, where is that? And it could say, oh, because it knows where you are. And it's like, oh, it's down an aisle to there to your right. Um, as a marketer, you could then say, hey, would you mind? Can I ask you a question? So you could ask a question because now you've got engagement at that moment with the
Mm,
employee. Now think about the data. Now you know what your customers are searching for in your store. So you know what the trend is, what people are interested in. And because it's AI intelligence, you could say, hey, if they're asking for something generic, then ask more questions. Like maybe it's something we don't stock. Then say, hey, that's not something we currently stock. Can you explain how you what that's solving for you? Again, word it much better. That's a marketer's dream because now you're connecting straight with the customer. You're streamlining. Yeah. Anyways,
oh no, I'm just was saying, like, one of the biggest benefits I've ever had in marketing is the realization that conversations with customers are probably the most richest, amazing data source. And nobody is talking to anybody. The customer services are talking to people only when they're mad. The
yep,
salespeople are talking to them only when they're, excited to get in bed.
yeah.
And then marketers are just like, okay, what did you tell them? What did you promise on the pillow? What did you promise on the marriage bed? And then the customer people are like, what did they say? And you're like, hold on. What you can do is get the voice of the customer, case studies, customer interviews. If you can get some of those things, you can get probably 1, 2 sentences that will change your life. But people aren't having those conversations. I love that technology like this can give us better access to those qualitative insights. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So we've talked about some good use cases, interesting ways that people are adopting Do you have like a AI like horror story? Not to stoke the fear thing, but what have you seen a big failing in AI adoption or measuring the return on AI initiatives?
Well, without going into too details on who, there was a retail company that we weren't doing anything with, but I was involved tangentially, and
Mhm.
they had a business case which was, hey, if we go build this, then and it was the fire. We're going to go build this thing, and we're going to fire all these people, and that's why we're going to spend the money, and it's going to be this really fast project, and they invested a ton of money. Um, it was the magic bullet to cost save, right? And replace people. They didn't properly train it with the relevant data, and so it had incorrect answers, frustrated customers. And I just say, like, think about go back to frustrated customers. Have you seen like those chat bots on the website where it's like chatbot, thinking? It's like, help me with this, and it's like, okay, do you want to do A, B, C, D? No, I want to do what I asked you. Well, that's not one of the choices. And then you're like frustrated clicking. So I would say that I've seen a number of things where people go into it where they weren't really clear. They didn't understand the expectations and
Mm,
what it's actually capable of today. And again, some
mm,
of these things it's going to get better with in time, going back to some of the comments earlier. But
mhm.
that would be one example where, somebody, ultimately got let go for the whole project because it didn't do anything. Probably as a horse.
Well, you said time. With time, it'll get better. Nah, nah, nah. With your talent, with our
Well,
talents,
wait,
we
by
are
the way,
going
who
to make
builds
this
this
thing
stuff? It's
better.
humans. That's right. It's all humans.
It's all
We
humans.
AI is again, that's the part people don't get. It is just mimicking what it's learned. Like it's not original thought. It's just a massive data set that's trying to mimic parts of the brain, and that's why it can give really good answers. And that's also sometimes why it makes those hallucinations or mistakes.
Right. And then, I mean, how much of our coworkers have came with some bad information? We didn't get all upset at them for drawing, somebody with six fingers. But I think this is awesome. And I'm totally aligned with you. Like, this secret sauce that AI is waiting for is you. So don't wait for the condiment to come out. Like, you are the condiment. So season it up, sprinkle yourself all over these processes, deeply understand them, and hang out with Ken. Here, if you had one piece of advice to give to the audience on measuring those benefits of AI,
Mhm.
what would it be?
Well, I've got four. I'd say one, did it reduce response times? Did it increase revenue or conversations or conversions to revenue? Did it improve customer satisfaction or reduce churn? Did it save time or reduce manual workload? In essence, did it help your employees or help your customers? If it didn't, it's not delivering value.
Maybe some of the things before you're trying to measure the benefits, figure out how you're going to measure it. Like, because I was just saying, like, how would somebody know if those metrics went up or down? Like, do you have sentiment analysis? And something you said that was so cool is knowledge management. AI is brilliant at this, man. I mean, like wait, where's the latest? What's the sales team needs they're working off old stuff. Not anymore. You can put it all in one place, and have it accessible and live, and like that alone should be able to like spark people's excitement, dude. Unreal. Such a joy talking to you. If people want to learn more about you and your work and connect online, how can they do that, Ken?
Cool. So if they want to learn about me, you could go to kengavranovic.com, KenGavranovic.com. I oftentimes, for no fees or whatever, help companies answer questions because I'm all about giving back. I've been blessed to have a lot of experience. I also have an AI startup, product genius.guru, where it uses AI to help hotels, restaurants, small businesses, and really kind of drive that customer experience we were talking about.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese.
You said that really fast. Do you want to explain it, or are you eating cheese right now? It doesn't look like he has cheese near him.
Diet.
Fair, fair. Oh, I guess that's a
If you asked me
non-lactose.
10 years ago, I would have said chocolate very confidently.
Yeah, that's and also that question isn't good for the lactose intolerant. Anyway, ancient Greeks or ancient Roman?
Ancient Greeks.
Oh, really? Why?
I've read a lot of the Stoic philosophers. There's a lot of great knowledge if you go back to ancient Greeks.
Dude, totally. They basically invented drama and music. Guitar or banjo? Ooh,
Guitar.
banjo? People aren't loving the banjo? Ken, come on. You don't like
Banjo
banjo?
seems cool, but if I could, I've always wanted. I've tried to learn guitar a couple of times. Like just like when you see somebody that's a really good guitar player with the electric, where they just do so much more with it. I think.
Absolutely. Here, a related question: rock or jazz?
Jazz.
Explain.
Well, at this moment, I thought that would be the best thing to do to chill. So, like before we got on this, like I had some jazz going on this morning.
Kenny G strikes again. Miles Davis or Betty Davis?
We got to go with Miles Davis then.
I know, it's just like I should have paid attention to your answer the last time. And finally, long walk on a beach or hike up a mountain?
Hike up a mountain.
Get your legs working, huh?
Get your legs working, and there's like I don't know, there's a sense of accomplishment when you're like up at the mountain. You're like, wow, I walked up this thing. You're like, we did the Half Dome once, and it's a not insignificant walk, and you're kind of like, wow, that was pretty cool. Maybe a little dangerous.
My calves. I have parts of my legs I didn't even know I could feel.
Totally.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.